So, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to today's coffee talk. For those that are tuning in and listening, I'd like to introduce you to some of the Koze members that are joining me for the conversation today. So, if you guys just want to give like a quick hello, if you're drinking a coffee or a tea, feel free to let us know. We'll start with Luan.
Hi, I'm Luan. I'm drinking a London Fog with a unicorn on the mug.
Amazing. We also have Anna joining us today as well.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm drinking a caramel macchiato from Starbucks today.
Sounds delicious. And then Megan as well joining us.
Hi, I'm Megan, and I am drinking a herbal tea.
Lovely. I will cheers you to that. I'm also drinking some herbal tea today. Obviously, I'm Kaylin. I would like to thank you guys for coming and doing the first group chat coffee talk. This is a new thing for me. It's new for all of us today, but I'm really excited to talk about today's topic being living out your 20s in the 21st century. There's so many different ways that we can go with this topic, but I did write out just a couple prompts to get us rolling, and then we'll just see where the conversation goes. And then also too, again, anybody listening or watching in the future, feel free to list your own comments or list your own responses to any of the prompts in the comment section over on YouTube. Okay, so let's jump in with self-esteem and soul searching. So my very first question, or prompt, if you will, is what things have had an effect on your self-esteem, both positive and negative, in your 20s, but also just in general? You can talk about growing up or anything in between.
I'll start. So I think the number one thing that helped me was moving away from the town I grew up in. I just feel like when I started university, I just felt a lot more independent. Even though I was moving into a dorm, it was just a really positive change. And figuring out what jobs jived well with me. Like there was a lot of jobs that I had in like between like 19 to like 23 that just didn't go over well. So I feel like that was something that was really huge, like taking the power back and quitting when something wasn't working well with me. Yeah.
Did you find it hard leaving your hometown, or was it something you were like looking forward to or excited about?
It was a mix. I had a boyfriend at the time in my hometown, so it was really hard to leave, but something like drew me out of the town. I don't know what it was, but I still live in the town that I moved out to when I was 18. So it was a really good move. I don't know. I feel like it was like an intuitive feeling. I just like felt pulled. It was really hard, but it was really worth it. Like the discomfort was worth it.
And Megan and Anna, are you guys in your hometowns, or did you guys leave?
Yeah, I left for school when I was 18, so to go to college in Philadelphia, which is like an hour and a half-ish from me. So it was far enough where I was like independent, but close enough if God forbid anything happened, I could just go home. But definitely moving out and being on your own, like you realize how many decisions, like I definitely suffered from like decision fatigue because I was so used to my routine at home that when I got to school it was like, okay, like now usually my family has one big laundry day, so now it's like figuring out when to do my own laundry. My family always eats together, figuring out when I should go eat. Like so many things that have been in my routine since I was literally like 5 years old got basically put all on me, and having to constantly make those decisions definitely wore me out, but built me into, I guess, a greater sense of like independence, which I felt like I never really had before. I'm back home now for winter break, but being like a senior and seeing how far I've come just from freshman year, decisions that I used to think were so daunting are now just coming so naturally. And it's awesome to just like see myself grow in that way.
Totally. What about you, Megan? Are you still in your hometown?
So technically, I'm close by. I moved to a nearby city after college, but I did go about 3 hours away for school. I wanted to go away, and I think I felt that that time was really big for me to like figure things out for myself and like build routines and habits that were different that I've taken with me. Now that I'm still close with my family, I can kind of still be near them, but I have more independence and more of like my own like life choices, decisions, and habits that I have now that I've shaped from going so far away at first.
Totally. Okay, so then I feel like we can all agree that like leaving the hometown, like almost pushing yourself out of the nest is a good thing for self-esteem, even if at first like decision fatigue, I can totally relate to that, Anna. Like I feel like I also went through a huge phase of like, when do I do this? When do I do that? Like how does my routine work? And like just slowly sharpening the process, but it definitely helps like grow your self-esteem and affirm your ability to make decisions the more you make them for yourself, and you kind of push yourself out of the safety net so you have to make those decisions. There's like a fire under your butt in a sense. Okay, so then what do you guys think defines soul searching in your 20s? Like if I were to say, okay, go soul search, what would you do?
My thought on this is it's like figuring out what makes your like soul happy. Like trying things, trying new things, trying things that you don't like, trying things that you do like, and figuring out what fits. I always like to compare it to like when you're a kid, you have that game with like the shapes and you have to put the shapes in the right hole. It's like playing and figuring it out. And every so often you'll get the shape into the right hole. And like that's something that like identifies who you are as an individual person. And like that's kind of to me what that seems like.
Totally. I love that analogy of like putting the shapes in the right places, being like, oh, this one doesn't fit there. Oh, this one fits there. Oh, I like that one. Like, totally. Like, what else? What other ways have you guys felt like you've soul searched in your 20s? Like, so far, you don't have to be done your soul searching by any means.
I feel like a lot of it is like figuring out what people are your people. And it's kind of like what you said, Megan, like trying people on for size and seeing if like they're a good friendship fit, relationship, or whatever it may be. And then like moving forward from there and just like surrounding yourself with the people that are going to fill you up as opposed to tear you down. I feel like, and it's really hard to like make friendships in your 20s, like after university or college or whatever. So it's like a challenging time, but also the relationships that you make are so much more powerful and long lasting. I mean, I hope. Um, but yeah, I feel like that's a really big one because your life can feel so much more full depending on who you surround yourself with.
Totally. Are you guys friends with still a lot of the same people you had growing up, or did you make like all new friends in the last few? Because I don't know exactly where you guys are in your 20s, by the way. I should probably note that. But like in your 20s, are you finding that you're still holding on to like older friendships, or have you made new friends? Is it a mix of both? Like
I would say for me, it's a mix of both. I've had, and part of the soul searching for me in my 20s was realizing friendships that weren't serving me and people who weren't treating me great. So some of my friends from college, it was like okay, I shouldn't deal with this, or this isn't how I should be treated. And so I have some friends who are great and who are like my support system. But then I also have other friends who I've kind of said, for me and for my health and my mental health, I can't be near them.
okay, what about in terms of self-actualizing in your 20s, which is I feel like something that again we don't necessarily do in our 20s. None of this has to happen in our 20s. It was just a way to kind of encompass our conversation today. But I know like for myself, self-actualization has been a process, especially with kind of the soul searching and the self-esteem and the trial and error, but also too, and we'll get into social media, but just having almost like when I think about our parents versus our generation, they didn't have as many mirrors reflecting back to them who they were as we do with the age of social media. Like you have such a wide variety of people online, which is an amazing thing, but it can also be a very confusing thing because when you're like, well, wait, I like that and I like that and that looks really cool. I'd like to try that on. So have you guys gone through the process or like had any experiences yet with realizing who you are and feeling like it was a little bit more individual or maybe a little bit more unique than like the cookie cutter idea of what being in your 20s is kind of sold to you as?
Yeah, I would say 1,000%. I'm only 21, so I'm on the baby side of the 20s. So still at university, but I feel like still being in that setting, like I'm a senior now, so I guess I have a little more of an outlook on it, but it's like it's kind of like classic high school, like the groups, like there's the athletes and there's like the people into this and the people into that. And I found more so in college that like as you get older, like you just like don't care anymore. Like you really just don't care to fit in. And I feel like when you find your people, like Megan and Luan both said, when you have that group of friends and you feel that sense of belonging, then it's like, okay, like I could be whoever I want. I could be like, I could try this, I could try that. Just because I don't do a certain thing or I'm not in a certain club doesn't mean I can't. Um, And it's just, and especially like going through college during COVID was a very unique experience. So there's people in like, I had a full freshman year, a hybrid sophomore year, an online junior year, and a weird hybrid senior year. So it's just been like people have spent so much time like by themselves through an experience like college where you're supposed to be with all these people and supposed to be trying new things, that we've taken the time, at least I myself, I can't speak for others, to know what I like and what I like to do. And then when it came time to come back into the college atmosphere, people are just more accepting and more welcoming than I guess if we hadn't. So I guess that was a good thing that came out of COVID, is people had that time to be by themselves and figure out like, did I just like skateboarding because all my friends did, or do I like really want to do this in my free time when I'm home alone now for 5 months?
That's such a true point. I feel like, yeah, there was way more time spent alone no matter where everybody was in their lives because of the pandemic. And that's so true. Like, it's hopeful to believe, but that a lot of people would have used that time to be like, well, wait, I think I'm really into like this hobby, or I think I really like this stuff, or like found some new music, found some new groups, like totally. What about the idea of self-esteem and soul searching? And this is going to segue us into the idea or the conversation of social media and the internet. But do you think that there is almost like a marketed idea of what it means to be self-assured or to soul search? Like, for instance, I think of, again, just the difference of generations. I think of my parents' generation and their friends, like it wasn't as marketed to them to like go off and travel the world or like to do all of these crazy things that, again, I think social media kind of then caters to this idea that, oh, if you want to soul search, you have to go to all of these crazy countries and you have to like, you know, jump out of an airplane and do all of these crazy things. So do you guys think that there's maybe an idea of self-esteem or soul searching that's been marketed or capitalized on in a sense for our generation?
Yeah, when you said soul searching, the first thing I thought of was travel. And then I was like, oh, I can't actually do that right now. In a way, it's marketed to us, but on another hand, we're like doing it almost to ourselves by the time spent on social media and the things that we're posting and exposing ourselves to. Because even if someone's having like the worst vacation ever, they're going to post like the best picture that they took on that vacation, and we're going to compare ourselves to it, or the vacation that we had and maybe we didn't snap a picture on our vacation, so we think our vacation was worse. And yeah, it's just really interesting the way things have changed, because it can look different for everybody, and a lot of people don't like to travel, but if anyone were to say that in like an open conversation, it would be like looked down on, because that's supposed to be like the thing in our 20s to travel, even though none of us have any money. So it's all very confusing.
It's so true. And it's interesting because like that's the first thing that comes to my mind too when I think of soul searching is travel. And it's very true that there's a million different ways that you can soul search. Like realistically, anywhere you go, your soul kind of goes with you. So anything you're doing is kind of soul searching in a sense. It's funny what you said too, that like someone could have the worst vacation ever, but they post the best picture and then it's like, oh my gosh, that person's thriving right now. They're out there soul searching, they're discovering who they are, when meanwhile they might be like, this sucks, I want to be at home. So which is a good segue into like all of us having grown up in the era of the internet, in the era or the introduction of things like social media. So I'm curious, what was your guys' first experience with the internet like? Not social media, like solely just the internet. Like for me, it was dial up and someone yelling at me to like get off the internet because like my sibling would want to call their friend. You just hear like the boop beep, boop beep beep. And like I'd be like, no, I'm on Neopets. So what were you guys doing the first time you started to like figure out what the internet was when it came to be?
I just want to second the dial-up, because I can vividly remember we had one computer and like having to fight each other to get online and like do on like AIM and like instant messenger, and like that's some of the first things that I remember of the internet is like instant messaging people and connecting with people, and the internet being like it was like a novelty rather than like something that like is literally everywhere you go, which I think is really an interesting like thinking about how that's changed.
Totally. I remember because I was a little bit younger than my sister and my cousins, and I think they used this first IM a thing called like ICQ, I think it was called. And then the first one I ever got to use was like MSN Messenger. And I remember I would like change my MSN status to like whoever I had a crush on that week. I'd be like, I heart you, and then put like their initials, or like you'd put like sad song lyrics. And I miss MSN Messenger status updates, you know? What about you, Luan? What was your first experience with the internet?
Webkins. Did anyone else have Webkins as kids? Um, that's one of the first things that I thought of. Yeah, I think that was, I don't remember if there was any instant messaging, but you could like send your friends gifts and like all those weird things. It was like the first time I felt connected to people online. That was so weird to think about now. You bought like a little stuffed animal and then you put in your code and you forget about the stuffed animal just because you want to be online. And the other thing I thought of was, yeah, MSN messaging. And I used Meebo. My parents probably still don't know this, but Meebo was like it was basically MSN, but you could like hide it from your browser because I wasn't allowed to use MSN. So I was like instant messaging my friends on like this probably like super sketchy browser. But yeah, just like the desperation to be online and like connected to people because yeah, my parents tried to like shelter that side of the internet probably because they didn't understand it, which is fair enough. I was like 12 years old, so that's pretty young to, I don't know, go home from school and start messaging all your friends that you've been with for like 6 hours already.
Totally. My parents actually had cookies on the computer as well, and they would like backlog all of our MSN conversations. And I remember the day I found it, because I'm a little bit more tech savvy than both my parents, and I found it and I was like, Dad, you did what? Like, felt like he had like read my journal, you know? I was like, you're reading all of my embarrassing conversations. What about you, Anna? What was your first experience with the internet like?
Um, I feel like a baby because I barely know what MSN was. Like, I was more definitely did webkins like Luan. I had like 24 webkins, so many. And like all the classic games like Club Penguin, Pop Tropica. Um, our I was like 10 maybe, and we had this thing called It's My Locker, and it's not around anymore because sadly cyberbullying went rampant on that. But it was kind of like for middle schoolers, a MySpace for middle schoolers basically was their bit. And it was just like you posted things like on sticky notes on the inside of your virtual locker, and you could like follow other people's lockers. And yeah, that was my first experience, but then my school had to like shut it down because there was a lot of instances of cyberbullying, which I feel like was a whole new form of torment for like our generation. I feel like that our parents didn't really have to deal with. Like if you had a bully, like they faced you at school, but the fact with the internet, there was this like anonymity factor that you could get away with so much more. And it was just a bad time in middle school, I feel like, for a lot of people our age.
Totally. Well, and also too, even if the person wasn't being anonymous, like let's say you had a bully at school that was like being mean to you, it was almost like as soon as social media or the internet came to be, for a lot of people, you couldn't get a break. Like you'd be bullied at school and then you go home and it's still happening while you're at home and like you're just facing it in a completely new dimension. And your parents are like, I don't understand what's going on. So yeah, that's so true. I didn't even think of that. That's something else that our generation has experienced that our parents maybe didn't, was this idea, this whole new level of bullying that could be anonymous and could be like people ganging up. Or like I remember being in elementary school and there was like a Facebook group that was made to bully just one girl in particular, and it got so out of hand that like it went to the principal, and then they were like, are we gonna have to ban Facebook? And like I definitely feel like we were all on the up and up of like trying to suss this stuff out and realize like where do we draw lines and boundaries, because the internet doesn't really have lines and boundaries. And then obviously following the internet came social media. So what was your guys' first experience with social media like? Like what social media did you own? I'm pretty sure I started out with Facebook in 2008, which would have been grade 8 for me. And then I didn't get like Instagram didn't even become a thing, I don't think, till 2011, but I didn't get it until grade 12. And then the second social media account I had was Twitter actually in 2009. And I was a diehard Twilight fan. So I got Twitter just to get updates on all the Twilight movies. So yeah, that's how my social media experience started. What about you guys?
So I'm 26, and so my first was MySpace. I had a secret MySpace that my parents didn't know about because I wasn't supposed to be on social media. And then I got Facebook, but then before I got Twitter or Instagram, I got Tumblr because I enjoyed being on there and like getting all of the information and like in the early 2010s. And so those were my first experiences on there, which was interesting for sure.
Mine, I think I got Twitter first because I don't think my parents knew about it. I was big into Justin Bieber. So I would like go home from school and like scroll through all of his tweets. My parents didn't want me to have Facebook, I think, until I was 13. So I got Facebook and then I got Instagram like as soon as it came out because I think, again, Justin Bieber, just to like follow him around the internet. Um, but yeah, it was interesting. And then Snapchat as well. I think Snapchat came out before Instagram, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. And then the concept of like stories came out with Snapchat as well, which was just like this whole other toxic universe of seeing what everyone else is doing that you're not. That was interesting. Yeah. It was, yeah, hyperconnectivity. It can be dangerous.
Hmm. And also too, like I remember when Snapchat came to be, you're right. It was definitely before Instagram. And like it was in a weird phase for myself when I first got Snapchat where like everyone would be going to like parties and you would just see on Snapchat that everyone's at a party and you're like, oh, there's a party. Interesting. I wasn't invited. That's nice. Like again, something our parents would have not, you would have heard about the party the next day and then been like, oh, whatever. I did something else that night instead of sitting at home watching everybody's stories being like, oh, looks like a lot of fun. What about you, Anna? What was your first experience with social media like?
I had a sleepover with two girls and they like opened the door for me and they were like, oh my God, Instagram, Snapchat. So I got both the same day. And it was like, I was so mind blown. I was like, why don't you just send like a picture message, like instead of Snapchat? Like I was so confused. And I was like, and then you can't see it again. Like, where does it go? Does anyone have access to it? Like, it was just, I was so amazed and so like little at this point. But yeah, kind of going off what you said, just seeing all the, and then like girls starting, I feel to like you see what they're wearing, what like who's already like getting makeup on and who's, and I was like 10, 11 at this point, 10, 11, 12. And it was like, oh my gosh, like I have to grow up. Like I want to be like, I would wear my mom's heels and I'm like, I'm older now. Like it was just to grow up quicker and basically to be done with childhood because that's so childish. So I feel like seeing everybody's Instagrams and Snapchats and shopping at the mall by themselves. And my mom wouldn't let me go to the mall by myself. And I was like, Mom, all my friends are like things like that. It was just kind of a lot of comparison, I realized in the beginning, which was getting very toxic. Especially like when you're like an awkward girl in like prepubescent age and just kind of comparing yourself to everyone. And now I see like 13-year-olds on social media and it's like, I don't even look like that now and I'm 21. It's like it's because they have all of these mirrors, like you said, kind of staring back and like seeing what Kendall Jenner's up to or what this famous person or I need that new makeup. And it's like I feel like childhood is getting shorter and shorter nowadays. And I'm like, go outside, go play outside.
What you said is so true, though. I feel like there was, with the rise of social media, and again, constantly being confronted with what everybody else is doing and wearing, and like also, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there were like all of these makeup tutorials, like how to put on eyeliner, how to do this. So, like, obviously, especially anybody that like expressed themselves with makeup or were interested in that, like, could get into that quite earlier than what we, or maybe like when I think about my sister who's about 5 or 6 years older than me, she didn't really have that. But also, Anna, I feel like you were asking all the right questions, which is a good sign. Like, wait, where are these photos being backlogged? Like, who has access to these things? Like, very good sign you were asking those types of questions at like 10 or 11. Okay, so how has your social life changed since before and after like social media, which I know can be hard to remember what social life was like before social media, but just in general, like if you were to take an objective point of view, like how do you think socializing has changed since social media has come into the picture? I'll give a couple ideas. So for instance, socializing like back in the day, I remember when a friend wanted to get a hold of you, they would call your house phone and they'd be like, hey, is so and so home? And like if you didn't want to talk to that friend, you could look at your mom and be like, no, I'm not home. Like, don't bring me the phone. Whereas like nowadays you get a text and like we're almost overly accessible now. So socializing doesn't really have a start point and an end point. We're just constantly socializing, which can really drain depending on who you are, but like your social batteries, like boundaries are kind of gone. People can always just assume that you're going to answer within like a 24-hour period, whereas before you could maybe go days without really like having to talk to anybody. And also too, I feel like because, and again, like I don't know if I can like assert that this is true, but I would assume that because we're getting so used to socializing with a screen, and even though we're socializing with people on other sides of the screen, we're not necessarily making eye contact or reading body language. And then again, like you throw the pandemic on top of that too, where there's been a lot more distancing or like covering of faces, I feel like it's become a little bit less intuitive maybe to really deeply communicate, really make eye contact with people, like really tune into what somebody's saying, because not only is it just like our social life is changing, but even like our attention spans are changing. Yeah, so those are a couple things that come to my mind, but like, is there anything else that you guys think like social media has changed, either it be social or just in life in general?
I feel like it for like from what the first thing that I thought of is like and I don't think like the organic nature, but it's the right word, but like when you were with people, you were with people, you didn't know what had happened to them. You could kind of have a really great conversation and like actually be able to pay attention. It's like weird socializing now because when you're on any platform, you can always see what people are doing. So you kind of always know what they're doing and like kind of like have things to talk about, but there isn't as much of like an updating or sharing versus just like a what's going on, how's it going? And there's only so much you can type in a text. When you text people, because so many of my friends are like anti-phone call, so it's like texting or video chatting, and so you're either talking for a while or it's like little short bursts where you kind of know what's going on, but you don't really know what's going on, and so it's not as much of that like authentic, that's the word, authentic interaction with people anymore as it was when you were like before social media.
That's so true too. And I feel like with the short bursts as well, like we don't really get, I'm somebody that really likes to get to like the heart of the problem or like the heart of the situation as well. So you might get like an update of like, hey, how was your day? Oh, it's not too bad. Like, how's yours? But it's not like, oh, I was actually really feeling like this today, which isn't something that you want to do all of the time when you're socializing, but especially with the people you're really close to. Like we get updates, but we don't actually know what's going on so far beneath the surface, if you will. That's a really good point, actually, Megan.
Kind of going off of that, I feel like before, like you would frequently talk to people. Like I would like always text like my 5 best friends, and like we'd always FaceTime, or we'd always. But then when we all went to separate colleges, but I follow them on all the social medias, so I feel like I see them every day. Like I see them on my Snapchat, I see them on my Instagram. But the last time I had like an actual conversation with them could have been like months or even years. But because of that factor that I feel like I'm tapped in, I'm plugged in, I see them all the time, I know what they've done, I know their vacation, it seems like it went well. Like I feel like I and maybe them as well, like feel like we don't have to talk every day anymore because I already know like everything that's going on. But then like you said, like Instagram, Snapchat, this is all the highlight reel of your life. So they could probably be going through something really deep or personal. And like me as one of their good friends is not reaching out because I'm like, oh, like it seems like they're doing great. So I feel like constantly feeling like you see them on social media, with me at least, it's like, oh, I see them all the time, like, oh, she's out in Australia right now, or she's doing this. But like the last time I had a one-on-one connection was probably a lot longer than I'd like to admit. And it's like it's a new type of connectivity that's not as deep anymore.
It's so true. And it's like an amazing thing too to be able to have tabs on all of the people we care about, like what they're doing, and to like it's nice to be in the loop of like what the people you love are doing, but it's right at the same time you might be like, "Oh wait, it's been like 8 months since I've actually like genuinely one-on-one talked to that person and been like, how's life? Like how are things going?" It's like you might know how their relationship is or like how their job is going or like little updates, but it doesn't necessarily mean like further than that, further than what maybe is like very public facing, that most people are getting updates on unless they're like private online or something. Okay, so then bringing it back to self-esteem and soul searching, how has social media played a role in that for you? So I feel like we kind of already talked about this with there being all of these mirrors in a sense, or just like all of these like kaleidoscope of personalities online, which again is a great thing. It's kind of a double-edged sword because it's like it can be a great thing. It can also be a hindering thing. And so when it comes to self-esteem and soul searching, has being on social media helped you understand yourself better? Or in what ways has it helped you understand yourself better? And has it, or in what ways has it made it more difficult? That was not the most articulate way to ask that question, but hopefully it came across.
For me, I think at first it was super challenging because I just felt like I was comparing myself to everybody, and I got afraid of what I was going to be posting. Like, the girls in high school, what are they going to think of me? Even though like we're not friends, and I probably shouldn't care what they think. And then I kind of got exposed to a different world of it. I started using my personal Instagram account for what's now like my little business. And I started to become connected with like all these amazing women that are further ahead in their career than me, but like they want to help me. And that was just like such a special thing to be connected with people that like want to raise each other up, as opposed to, I don't know, yeah, like posting that picture from your vacation and just worrying what everyone's going to think of you, what your body looks like, or whatever. It's like, I feel like when you stop caring and when you start posting what you want to post and you know who you're posting for, then it's a huge game changer. Of course, like there's things that come into play that's like imposter syndrome, and you compare yourself with the people that are ahead of you and stuff like that. But I think, yeah, it's important to be mindful that it is it's a highlight reel, and like there are so many amazing people you can be connected with.
So true. I can't help but think back to this like realization from a book recently. I don't know if you guys are in the Koze book club, but we were talking about how in the book there's this line that our brain is actually only supposed to know about 150 people, and like outside of that it becomes overwhelming. And so I feel like, running off of what you were just saying there, it's very important, I think, who we follow and what we choose to follow, because in a similar sense, like I, especially when social media first came around, and it was like Tumblr was big, and like We Heart It was big, and like it was all of these very picturesque looking ideals of what you would think you would you would put it on a dream board, right? You'd be like, this is what I want my life to look like. And you get comparing yourself, or you would even try and take, like, I would do this. I would try and take like a similar photo to something I would see on like Tumblr, and then I'd be like, oh God, this doesn't look anything like that perfect human that probably doesn't also look like that either. And then throughout the years, I feel like as social media has really rooted down and made itself known that it's not going anywhere, it's become kind of like you said, Luan, to be mindful of what you follow and who you choose to follow, and in a very like loving goodbye, it was nice to follow you kind of way, but like weeding out the stuff that you're like, ooh, actually seeing this makes me feel really crappy, and like seeing this makes me feel really motivated, or like connecting with this kind of group is really fun, or like connecting with this idea or trend online feels really crappy. So I can definitely resonate with that. What about Megan or Anna? Has being on social media like had any kind of effect on soul searching or self-esteem in any kind of way for you guys?
I did a very similar thing where I would take the pictures on Tumblr of like people's rooms, and like we couldn't afford to like buy the stuff that was in the pictures, but I would like move it around and then be like, oh, it doesn't look exactly like it looks there. And so I think for me it was like, it kind of was really harmful, and it kind of came to a point where I deleted everything and I said I just can't be online anymore. And coming to the point where I was like, I can't do it. It's not helping me. I feel like I'm never going to be this person, or have this closet and look like this, and have my hair look like this, and have my body look like that. And so I kind of did the point where I was like, I can't deal with it. Especially, I think for me during the pandemic, it really hit a crescendo because everybody was posting what they were doing, and it became this like oh well, they're able to do this, or they're here with this, or they're getting married, or they've had a baby, and making me feel like I should be at a certain spot and this is what my life should look like, and it doesn't. But I think when I realized that like I can be okay with me and like what I am, I'm like, okay, I can be on here now and enjoy it because I'm only following my friends and like people that inspire me, versus feeling like I have to have. I remember when I was a kid, it was a competition of how many friends you could have and how many people would follow you, and like everybody wanted to have the most, and I never had anywhere close to the most. And I used to always feel so bad about that. I was like, people don't like me because they don't want to follow me, but it has nothing to do with that. It's a popularity game.
So true. And I feel like something you just highlighted is so huge as well with the upcoming of like internet and social media was that there was this very like underlying energy to it that your self-evaluation, which is very much a role in self-esteem, is like how high you value yourself comes from how many people like you, how many people follow you, how many people are like backing what you do. So that is very, very true to like be able to weed even that part out of because it's so subconscious. It's not like you're consciously like, okay, if I get X amount of followers, then I'll be cool enough to like value myself. It's such a hardwired part of our brains that I don't even think when the internet came to be or like social media came to be, anybody was thinking about what it was going to do on that front. And then Anna, is there anything that you felt with social media when it came to just like how it may have changed your life or anything of the sort?
Yeah, definitely. I just always felt kind of like what both Megan and Luan were saying, like just like this pressure to know what I should be doing, to know like how I should be looking compared to all my followers, and then coming to that realization that like you have the choice of who you follow. Like you could unfollow people, you could follow more bet like people that support your small business, you know, or close actual close friends. So shifting that mindset to like a numbers game and being like, oh my God, if I unfollow all these people, they'll unfollow me back. But it's like, but why am I unfollowing these people? It's for my own like mental health. It's so I stopped comparing. It's so I could finally like put my blinders on and focus what I want to do and not constantly be like looking to the side and being like, ooh, she already graduated early, or like, ooh, she already has a full-time job, or like, ooh, like her boyfriend already engaged. Like it's always like, it's like, no, Anna, just focus on everything happens for a reason. Like whatever your path is, like whether you post it or not, like it'll happen and it'll come to fruition. Like don't though the more you compare, I feel like the more you just kind of deplete yourself and put yourself even further back, rather than kind of shifting your mindset to being like, instead of comparing, let me put my blinders on and just focus on what I need to do. And then like then everything will work out for me, and then I won't feel this sense of like defeat or failure because someone 10 times richer than me can afford all this stuff and all, or someone who's more knowledgeable doing all this. It's like, well, how can I get there, like, you know? So I feel like more blinders and less constantly like looking at everyone else, you know, less comparison.
So true. And I feel like again too, like you could have one situation go two different ways. Like doesn't matter what the situation is, but something happens and you feel fulfilled by it. Like let's say you were planting a garden and I don't know, like your plant sprouted like this high. And in a blinder situation, you would be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like my plant, it's sprouted. But then if all of a sudden you went on like social media and somebody's garden had like 10 sprouts and they're 10 times taller than yours, all of a sudden your sprout feels insufficient. So like so true with the comparison game. It's such a fine line finding that balance between following what inspires you versus following what makes you feel like you need to do better, which can sometimes get very, very toxic at times. Okay, so let's talk about surviving in your 20s. First question or first prompt is, when was the first time you guys felt like an actual adult in whatever terms you might define adult in? But like, when was the first time you were like, oh gosh, I'm not a kid anymore?
For me, it was in college. I had gotten, and this is not a fun story, but I got bit by a spider and my leg started to swell, and it was like really swollen and warm and getting infected. And I was like, I don't have my parents here. Like, what am I gonna do? And I had to like, I remember like having to go to to the hospital, and like I remember being like, like this is what it means to be an adult. Like I have to be able to like figure out what's a problem and like being able to like take care of myself and understand that. And that was like very frightening, but I think for me, a really good lesson on like you have to be able to take care of yourself, and like that's what being an adult kind of means.
And I'm glad you're okay. That would be terrifying. I would not want to be bit by a spider.
I hate spiders now, so I have a big fear.
Rightfully so. What about the rest of you guys?
I laughed when you asked because I was like, as soon as I switched from my pediatrician, like as soon as my pediatrician was like, you really can't keep sitting at this like Disney themed doctor office anymore. I was like, oh no. Like, So finding, and my mom's like, all right, it's up to you to like find a doctor you like, to make appointments whenever you're free. Like, so I guess kind of not only switching doctors, but having to like plan my own schedule, I guess, in a way. Like, not my mom being like, okay, everyone gets their dentist in January, like we're all going in January, or uh like you're going to, like I had to be in charge of my own, of getting my own pills, of getting my own doctors, of like figuring out AAA when my car broke down and was like, I'm an hour, 2 hours from home, like my parents can't come pick me up. So things, I guess, you realize when you're in, when mostly you're in, like Megan said, like a situation, and it's like the first thing you want to do is like ask mom, ask dad, what do I do? And then you realize like it's up to you now, like you could do it. Just that realization makes me feel most adult, is when there's an issue and I'm like, I can't just call my mom, like I gotta figure this one out.
Totally. I love that your doctor was like, you can't keep coming to the Disney themed doctor anymore. Like
Yeah.
you're too tall for this table. Like, what about you, Luann?
I had trouble thinking of like a specific thing. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought it was the beginning of COVID, and my partner and my house, the basement flooded, and I was like, oh crap, like house insurance, connecting with like a condo, and oh god, it was just like, it's bad. We have a dog, so like he couldn't go into the basement. It was gross. It was just like a hot mess, and it was so much to deal with and so many months of dealing with it. It was just like the most bizarre thing. I was like, I never thought I'd have to deal with any of this, because like growing up in my house, like I've lived in apartments and stuff, like those never flooded, and my parents would hide the little thing from me, and like having ant problems and like stuff like that, like all that nasty stuff that you have to deal with, that you can't be like, hey mom, hey dad, can you come and take care of like the bug situation. um I think that's like the biggest adulting thing, not like the most glamorous, but it definitely is something you have to deal with on your own. That's inevitable.
So true. So like basically crisis, coming up with your own schedule and finding your own like doctors and dentists and making appointments, and dealing with the like the not necessarily crisis, although flooding a basement is pretty much a crisis, but like I also have had issues with like ants, and since moving, like mice and things, and just like these little annoyances where you're like, I remember being a kid and this would not have been my responsibility. I could be like, oh, mouse, cute, and someone else would take care of it. Now it's like, oh, I have to clean all the mouse droppings and then find a way to get this mouse to stop coming in my house. So yes, totally. Also too, I feel like the first time I ever felt like an adult was when I got my first bill for something, and I was like, oh, I have to pay for this like monthly, like, and I have to stay on top of that. And like, what's a credit score? Like, what does that mean? And like getting your first credit card, or like all of those situations as well. Okay. Were there things that you felt or feel, you could still feel it, unequipped with when it comes to thriving in adult life in this generation? Was there anything that you feel like you didn't know, or you had to learn really quickly, or you're still learning really quickly, that like no one gave the memo on? I'm going to try and think of an example. So I feel like doctor's appointments and things like that, like finding a doctor, it's a good thing your mom said to you on a like, find a doctor you really like, because I feel like that was a memo that wasn't necessarily broadcast, that it was like, oh, you can actually, you have full control over who you pick and choose to like be your dentist and be your doctor, if you can find those types of people. But just like being able to be, I guess, like picky about those things could be one thing that I feel like I wasn't equipped with in adult life. It was just like, you take what you get. Like, so is there anything else you guys feel like you weren't necessarily fully equipped with when walking into adulthood?
For me, it was understanding like jobs, and like that it's okay if you're unhappy in a job. That doesn't mean you have to stay there. I feel like that's something with my parents' generation and generations before. They're like, you work for like however many years this company, and you retire. And I think I wasn't really equipped to like be able to, like, when I'm unhappy, to evaluate like my job and say, okay, I don't like this, I need to quit, or I need to find something else. And that's really difficult, I think, when you're faced with jobs that you don't really like, and like having to make those choices. And when you're not prepared for it, it makes it even tougher to even figure that out.
Totally. I can definitely back that as well with like being in a job where you're like, oh my gosh, this sucks. And I can still hear my parents, specifically my dad, being like, in life, you're going to come across people you don't like to work with, or in life, you're going to come across jobs that you don't necessarily like, and you got to persevere. And it's like, yeah, but there's also sometimes there's options. You get to be a little picky. Any other memos, adulting memos you feel like you missed or didn't get or are still learning?
All things money, banking, finances. Like I like went to open my first because my mom had like set up something where all of us like she's the oh my god, what's the person? Like she's basically in charge of our bank accounts. Like she's like the chaperone. So we were going to set up our own bank accounts, and I was like walking into the bank. I was like, I'd like to set up a bank account. And they're like, what type? And I was like, I put my money in, and they're like, there's long-term growth. There's you could reserve. There's one like we take out interest. I was like, what? Like that's like finances is so big and such a big part of everyone's life when it comes to like paying for things and in such a monetary society. And I feel like we're never like I'm a senior in college now, and I've never had like a class on that. I guess I could have found one and taken it, but I feel like there should be some sort of like adulting 101 class that's like these are all the different types of bank accounts, like this is the investment types, like this is the interest rates, um and just figuring out all of that, like a credit card, figuring out which one should I get, like anything finances goes right over my head. So having to deal with all of that was definitely like an adult memo I missed.
Totally. And I agree. I feel like that should be taught in school. It like in high school, even like getting ahead of the ball to like teach people how to deal with finances. Also, even just like home ec, like how to cook your own food, like how to do your own laundry. Like a lot of people don't know that when they like venture off to school or something, and they're like, how much detergent do I put in this? And specifically as well, you actually just made me think of something on a just like the idea. If you go into a bank and you're like, I want to open a bank account, the other thing is they're going to try and get you on something that's going to benefit them as well. Like hopefully it'll benefit you too. So it's also like reading the fine print and like going through, like if you're ever signing a contract or if you're ever signing like a lease, like I feel like I missed the memo on like read the fine print, get down into the details, figure out like your best option, and like don't just let the bank teller or the person you're leasing an apartment from like persuade you, because they're likely doing it in their best interest, and like you have to look out for your best interest. So I'll add that memo into the ring. What about you, Luann? Any adulting memos that you would have been nice to have?
Coming into adulting, that sounded so weird, but you know what I mean. I did not know what boundaries were. I didn't know that they were a thing you could set. I didn't know that like in therapy it's really commonly talked about. I had no idea until oh gosh, I don't know, until I was like 21 maybe. But yeah, I had no idea that you could like get yourself out of a feeling of feeling stuck, that you could like navigate your life in a way that makes sense to you, that you don't have to keep people around that aren't benefiting like you as a person. It's such an interesting concept that you don't need to do anything or be anyone other than like what makes you feel good. And it's like what Megan was saying about having a job as well. Like you can set a boundary and be like, I'm not putting up with that. Like I can quit, I can leave. That's a boundary that I have. Or yeah, in like relationships and friendships, or like even I remember in university, like the way professors would teach the students, I was like, that's a boundary. I'm sending you an email. Like that's not okay. Yeah, I feel like that's something that should be taught in like even like elementary school as well. Just like growing up with siblings, you should be able to have boundaries in place where you're like, this is my point where I just like walk away. I think it's so important. And yeah, it should be talked about more.
That is such a true point. Boundaries is such a good answer. And also, I feel like you just so naturally guided me into my next section of 20s in the 21st century, which is dating and romance. So what has dating been like in your 20s? Because I feel like it was a roller coaster for me, finding the right relationship in my 20s, and then also as well, like you bring in things like online dating and how that has reshaped dating in this generation. So, and then social media as well. Like, have you ever found like a prospect and then you creep their social media before you even get to know the person. So how has dating been for you guys in the 21st century? Do you have any stories, any experiences, any notes of wisdom for anyone that might be listening?
Utilize blocking people online when you need to. I think it can be a great thing, like having Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, all like the dating apps and stuff. Like you can meet so many people that you wouldn't otherwise. But like you can also meet a lot of creepy people, for lack of a better term. So like it's never something you should blame yourself for getting into a relationship with someone bad, but it's okay. Like boundaries, again, you can set a boundary with those people and just like get rid of them. Yeah, there's lots of room to make mistakes, but as long as you learn from them, like drive yourself to your first date. Don't let them pick you up, like that kind of thing. Like be safe first and then figure out the rest.
Totally, especially too, again, with the rising of like online dating or just like apps and all of these things. Like, whereas again, back in the generations before us, you might just like meet someone at the library, or at least that's how they make it seem in the movies, right? Like someone's just reading a book and someone's like, hey, like, or you're at a coffee shop or you're at a bar and someone's just like, can I buy you a drink? Whereas nowadays, like you're meeting a total stranger. Like we don't even have to dip into the idea of like people getting catfished or like you said, meeting some weirdos or some creeps. Like there's definitely there needs to be like a master class, at least one master class out there to be like how to keep yourself safe while dating in the 21st century. What about Megan or Anna? Do you guys have any pros or cons to dating in this era?
I feel like the pandemic has made people like really mean. And I say this for the fact that like I'm on dating apps and I'll like text this guy and we'll set up a date, and on the day of just ghost people. Like people ghost you so often. It's like a shitty thing to do. I'm like, why? Like you can't do this if you meet somebody in real life. Like you have to face them. Why do you think it's okay on the internet? So that's never fun. I hate that so much.
And I feel like that ties back into like how it's changed socialization with social media or like online dating and stuff, because it's so true. And I also feel like it makes me wonder what it's doing to our brains to have almost like accessibility to so many people. Like you can literally swipe through, if you wanted to, like 30 men or 30 women in a night and like get like 10 matches and talk to like 5 people in one night. Whereas like, again, generations before us, you'd be lucky to run into that one good person at the bar or at the bookstore. Like, again, they make it seem like in the movies. So it's true. It becomes a lot easier, I think, for people to just like ghost or to like talk to you for a little bit and then just like suddenly disappear. Or like maybe you're the person that's like, oh, I was kind of talking to this guy, but then I matched with this guy and he's a hottie. So like, bye, and like dip into another conversation. So like, yeah, it definitely cons. There are some actual cons, because I also agree with what Luan says. Like you can meet some incredible people that you might not have met if it weren't for online dating. But at the same time, double-edged sword, then it's like, well, at what point do you settle down with one? At one point are you like, I feel like there's almost this underlying energy to it that's like, well, what if you're just one swipe away from like your actual soulmate and this person was just like a stepping stone to your soulmate? And there's a lot of that energy with it. So like a lot of ghosting and a lot of like uncertainty or like ambivalence, if you will, of like nobody's actually 2 feet down on the ground ready to go for it. Or it's rare to find that.
I was gonna add, I'm like a relationship gal. I'm always in a relationship. So less with the dating, but more when it comes to relationships. I feel like because of social media and because of like our society right now, I feel like I've noticed that like cheating is almost glorified. Like in a lot of like, I watch like all these TV shows, Gossip Girl, like all of them, like cheating happens in all of them. And it's like, oh, another, like, oh, I kiss this girl instead, or like, and sometimes even watching them I find like I root for the other girl, like I root for the one they're cheating on with, and I'm like, why am I rooting for her? He's in a relationship. Like I feel like nowadays in so many songs it's like I have my side hoe or I have a side chick, or like I have like, people like, it's like I feel like nowadays, and especially with social media, being able to track people with Snap Map or turn on your Find My Friends or all these location services, like you could always see where people are, and it's like who they're hanging out with, and just like there's a lack of trust and like an increase of just like, I feel like I've noticed in the culture, like cheating occurring, and especially in the college scene, it's like everywhere. And it's so like, oh, like, yeah, like I kissed this guy, but like it was only once, and like, or something like that. Like when in, I feel like older generations or other generations, it's like cheating, that's it. Like that's the final line. But nowadays, and I feel like every TV show or song I hear about love or a relationship, like someone's always cheating, or um so that I feel like is something that's come with social media and with just like the media nowadays glorifying it in a way. It just causes a lack of trust in relationships nowadays.
Totally. I think about this a lot too, because I often wonder if cheating is more common now because of social media, especially too, like the term like slide into DMs or like, and it can happen to anybody, either role in any relationship, that like someone could just come along and like the trust, you have to have more trust now because again, we're so accessible. But then I also wonder, I'm like, okay, was cheating like less common in the past, or was it just more taboo to like talk about and show, or like were people more secretive about it? Was it easier to be secretive about it? Has this always been a thing? Like there's definitely, it's a big question, because I think about this too, and I wonder if though, like what you're hitting the hammer on the head with, it almost sounds like, or our culture has like changed the context of relationships and how serious perhaps we take them, especially in media or in shows where it's just like so nonchalant to just cheat on somebody and people are like, oh, whatever, like, life goes on. And it's like, oh, but wait, like that's somebody's feelings, that's somebody's trust, like that's going to be traumatic to that person that's been cheated on potentially. So yeah, I definitely wonder about that as well. Like, is cheating more common now, or was it more hidden then? Have we just changed how much or how serious we take relationships now? Are we just too accessible now? Lots of questions to ask there, definitely. But I'm going to segue because I know I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. I've had you for an hour and I very much appreciate it. But I have just two more topic starters for you. The first is thinking about the future, and what challenges do you feel like you might be up against, or like what does the concept of the future worry you, or do you think that that has been a common fear or worry for all centuries, or do you think it's different for our generation? Do you think we have more to worry about?
I'm thinking about climate change. I think every generation, like the younger you are, the more worried the generation feels about like the state of the earth. I live in BC in Canada, and like I'm completely blocked off from my family in Vancouver for Christmas this year, which is crazy. Like they could drive through the US, but there's like all the COVID stuff that's happening as well. It's just like how is this a thing? It's wild to think about. And like of course COVID, like I think that's almost like directly related to the climate crisis, just how many people are on this earth. But I also think about like the financial side of things. I saw a meme or something the other day that was like housing prices have gone up like 300% in 20 years or something, and wages have increased like 10% or something crazy like that. Those might not be the right stats, but like it's getting increasingly more difficult to just try to be a person, a young person in the world, and own what you have, and yeah, just like live more easily than we do right now. Everything is so expensive. We're not getting paid enough, and the world's exploding basically. So yeah, I would say that we're worried. I think that there's good things coming in the future as well, but yeah, there's a lot of scary prospects, but yeah, small impact hopefully will create a larger one with sustainability and all of that.
I feel like you highlighted a lot of the bigger issues that I think about as well when I think about the future and worry about it. Also too, this idea that we're going to segue into something like metaverse is also like very overwhelming to me. I'm like, wait, what? Like, and something you said as well with inflation. Like I remember traveling to the East Coast. I'm also from Canada, and I traveled to PEI, where a great deal of the Nicholson family is from. And we went to, it was my great Poppy's old general store. And I remember my dad telling me that he used to go there and get like bags of chips for 5 cents. And like that blew my mind. And that would have been about 10 years ago now. And it blew my mind then that you could get a bag of chips for like 10 cents, because I was like, what? You can't get chips for like less than $2.99. And like now it's less than $5.99. So I can definitely back what you're saying there as well. What about you, Megan or Anna? Do you guys have any fears or worries about the future? Or do you think that's just like a common thing for every generation?
I think that social media has created this idea of the 24-hour news cycle. And so I think people are more informed, which I think can be helpful for things like climate change and like like the race crisis and different things like that. It allows people to be more informed. But I also think on the other side of it, it's creating a lot of expectation and a lot of always being aware of what everyone's doing around the world and allowing everybody to be swayed. I think like on a more personal note, I think like when you see all of your friends get married and have children, you see all of this, it creates a word like, am I going to be able to do that? It's going to be something wrong with me, things like that. So I think social media has enhanced it, and that's not necessarily always a bad thing though. Like I think everyone's more informed and you have more access to resources to like be informed and to help inform others around you.
Totally. Double-edged sword. Like that's all that comes to mind when I think about social media, because it's such a blessing and a curse in the same breath. Like it's both. What about you, Anna?
Yeah, I would have to agree with both Luan and Megan when it comes to worries about climate change and also worries about this like global access to news from all over the world and what's going on. Because now it's no longer worrying about what you're doing, what your local politics are like, or your local climate is like. But now it's like, since we're so globally interconnected, the supply chain issues, it's happening like all the way in China or all the way in all these other countries, but then it affects you in your little hometown. And so I feel like the fact that we're so globalized is a good thing, but also just leads to more worries that like one piece falls out of line, or the fact that they're like a global war, anything could happen. It's just with everyone being so informed about what's going on everywhere, it just leads to a greater sense of worry, but also that greater sense of awareness, like Megan was saying. So like the double-edged sword, like you could be more informed, but also worry more.
Totally. And again, too, like I feel like you guys mentioned this, but past generations, you would have to wait a day or two to hear the news from somewhere farther than like your local region. From the time we started this conversation to the time we ended it, we could have two totally different, like complete big news updates if we were like keeping tabs on the news. And what that, again, I have to think about it. Like, what does that do to our brains? Like, what does that do to our behavior? Like, how is that affecting our nervous systems, like our anxiety levels, like so many different things? Because I definitely think we have some very valid things to think about for the future and try, and I'm trying to find a way to like not paint it too doomy, but like problem solve. We have some problem solving to do with the future, and like luckily if we are more global, we can all hopefully like come together to fix a lot of these issues that do affect all of us. But at the same time, it's like there has to be that balance of like, okay, I've done my worrying for the day. It's time to just like zone in and focus on the present moment, or like what I've got going in front of me, because like there's always going to be something to worry about no matter what generation you're from. Okay. And then my last question for you guys is, if you could go back to your teenage self and give yourself advice, what would you say to yourself in hindsight?
So I actually have been thinking about this, and this has been, I would say, years of therapy to get me to the point. But for me, I would say make decisions where you're never letting yourself down, even if it means you're letting other people down, and don't be afraid to let other people down. I think for me, that's the thing that I struggled with the most, especially into my 20's, and is I think the biggest thing that I've like learned to do. And with, I mean, you learn from everything, but would love to curb some of those experiences along the way.
That's really good advice.
I would tell my younger self, like, you are good enough, because I feel like, especially going back to like growing up in social media and not having my blinders on for the beginning of it, like constantly comparing, like, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not athletic enough, I need to be the best on the soccer field, the best in the classroom. Like it was just like get into the best colleges, and there was just so much pressure that I put on myself, but was really like external pressure, that if I just blocked it out and told myself, you know what, you're good enough, like you will get to where you get to, everything happens for a reason, is like my motto of my lifetime. You are good enough, and sometimes like it's okay if you feel like you're not. A lot of times when I felt like I haven't been, then it was like more negative self-talk. Like, why aren't you there? Why aren't you there yet? Why aren't you at your goal weight? Why aren't you at your peak athleticism? So I feel like finding that balance. Anna, you are good enough. Like, don't worry. But if you don't feel good enough right now, continue positive self-talk until you feel like you're at a place where you're at that like homeostasis. You're calm, you're happy, you're content.
Amazing advice. What about you, Luan?
The first thing that always comes to my mind is that I would want to tell myself that you're not stuck, because I feel like so many of the problems that I've had or struggles with my mental health have been when I felt stuck, like stuck in high school, stuck in a relationship, stuck in my hometown. It's just that I was never stuck. And I actually did make changes that made my life better as like I became an adult and had more control over what I was exposing myself to. And I think the other thing I would tell myself is the love that you're exposed to growing up isn't always the love that you deserve, whether it be friends, family, or whatever it may be. I think when you come into adulthood, I mean, yeah, like I'm 25, I'm on the beginning of adulthood, but there's just so much more out there, and your people are out there, and you experience like this whole different type of love. That's just like people that love you to your core for being who you are, as opposed to whoever you're trying to be.
That's amazing as well. Okay, guys, all crushed that question. And if I had to go back to my teenage self and give myself advice, I feel like in the moment, I don't know why this came to me, but like, don't hold back. Which I feel like also kind of coincides with what you guys are saying, but like, don't hold back for pleasing other people. Don't hold back because you feel like you're not enough yet, or like don't hold back because like you feel stuck. Like just go full force, like put it all out there, put your cards on the table, like live life for what it is, because as we just outlined all of our worries, life is very uncertain. So it's good to like live it while we're in it. So thank you guys so much for coming. This was such a beautiful chat. I'm so glad you guys came. This was my first time ever doing this as a group, so you guys are my first, but it was so fun. It was great to hear your guys' perspective and just be able to bounce conversation starters, ideas off you guys. I really appreciate you guys coming.
I was just going to say thank you for having us.
Thank you guys so much for joining me. This was so much fun. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I'm sorry we went over the time a little bit, but I appreciate you guys coming, and I'll talk to you guys very soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye guys.
Yes, thank you.